We are live. Adam, go ahead.
Thank you, Damien. What's up, everybody? This is episode 3 of Pitch the World. Welcome to our show. If you haven't seen our show before, it's a Facebook Live webcast featuring myself. My name is Adam Kemper, and my co-host is
Andrew Rosso here, everybody. Happy to be here. And you got two millennial attorneys here. So, there's some sort of genius behind it. And we have a wonderful person, Damien Coughlin, who's running the show as well. So a shout out to Damien.
So if you haven't seen our episodes before, our first 2 episodes are actually recorded onto YouTube and also our Pitch the World and Pitch Investors Live pages. So I encourage you to check out the first 2 episodes. Episode 1, we had Kevin Harrington, the original shark from Shark Tank, billionaire, investor, advisor to Pitch Investors Live. Busy man, just incredible pieces of advice that he gave us all. Definitely check out that episode. Episode 2, we actually had the founder of Pitch Investors Live, Matthew Lawley, and we got into, some of his early ventures, sort of what led him to create Pitch Investors Live. If you know anything about Pitch the World, you know that we're sort of an arm or a branch of Pitch Investors Live, and our goal is to just drive value to our viewers in the areas of business, law, tech, entrepreneurship, and mental health, which is one of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. So I'd like to introduce our amazing guest that we have coming in from Chile, Minnesota. I know we have a nice Minnesota demographic that pays attention to us too. So I'm real excited to have Dr. Lisa with us today.
Hey guys.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
I just want to, if you could just share a little bit about your background. I know you're an entrepreneur. I know you're the founder of Synergy eTherapy. You're a clinical psychologist with over 17 years experience. You're licensed in Minnesota. You're licensed in New York. You're licensed in Wisconsin. Did I take it all away from you?
No, you're doing good. You could just keep going. No, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Yeah, that is who I am. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I am licensed in 3 different states. So what that means is I can see people who are physically located in those states. Synergy eTherapy is actually an expansion of that, where we can see people in several other states. It's an online telemental health group practice. So what that means is instead of going to a group practice to see your therapist, and they've got several different therapists that you can see, that's a brick and mortar kind of a business. What I've done is taken the brick and mortar part and just transferred our group practice to an online form or an online setting. So we can offer therapy to patients who are at their home or at their work, on their lunch break, or in their car, wherever they need to be to access treatment that they really deserve. There's so many barriers that I've noticed over the years to why people don't go to therapy, why they can't go, why they don't go, and there's so many factors. And I wanted to at least try to take out some of those barriers, and being able to be at home or having therapy at nighttime when kids are in bed, or on the weekends when you're not at work, so you don't have to really pull your kids from school or take time off of work to get the healthcare you deserve. So I created Synergy eTherapy, and it is amazing. It is very fun. There's currently 8 of us that are in the group practice, and we have currently 7 states that we're in. So we're really, really excited about what we're doing to bring, healthcare to you.
Excellent. So just sort of leading up to that, why psychology? What drove you to this area for your career?
Oh my goodness. Well, you probably have to ask my mom for some background, right? It always starts when you're younger. But the one thing that I really remember is when I would watch, and this might date me a little bit, but like Sally Jesse Raphael or Maury, those were like Oprah. These were the big things on TV, and they would talk about like the behavior or the mind or the psychology of people's relationships. That's where I was just glued to the TV. And then in my own life, like I have a lot of great friends, and I would kind of be the person that people would go to, and I'd try to help solve problems. And I just kind of naturally, when I went into college right after high school, I declared my major as psychology, and kind of went from there. It certainly wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this within psychology. I definitely went to kind of like where the opportunities were, and I didn't plan for them. And it's really crazy to think, like, now looking back, I could never have planned this road.
And that's the best things, we find out is that we never really expect to end up most of the time
Right.
where we are, and you end up falling in love with it. I think that's the best part.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun, and it's nice to be able to, go home at night and go to sleep knowing that you're helping a lot of people and doing the best you can to kind of make the world a better place, one person at a time, right?
Exactly. And to kind of lead into synergy therapy, I don't want to overlook the fact that, you're also an entrepreneur, and you've gone through a lot of the same type of things that some of our audience members have gone through in terms of starting your own business, what to do with a web page, what to do with legal, just, a whole bunch of things that, in addition to providing therapeutic services to your patients, you're also running a business.
Yeah, that is the biggest thing that I've learned along the way. I actually come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I never thought that I would really be in that piece of things, but here I am. And you go to school and you go, to 4 years of college, and then I went 2 years of master's and 4 more years and then 2-year fellowship. And it's like you go to school all this time, and then they teach you how to do therapy, but they don't teach you how to run a business or how to open up a private practice. And so when you kind of dive in, you're like, oh, this will be great. I'll take what I know and just put it online, right? It's how hard could that be? Well, I mean, you have to learn like website development. You have to learn all the legal mumbo jumbo that we would call it, just like people say that about psychology, mumbo jumbo. It's so intricate. And SEO and marketing, you're supposed to all of a sudden know how to do all of this. And when do you do that? If you have a family or you're going to school or you're working a day job, it's so, so hard to fit it in. And you're constantly taking in information and learning. So not only am I running a business and seeing my own clients, but I'm learning like so much at once that it's just really a lot. It's fun, but it's also stressful.
I'm sure.
And technology does that to you also, and, similar to how you've structured your business, we're here with the Pitch Investors Live team, and, we wouldn't be here without them. And, the technology that they utilize of taking pitches on the go from your home, from the office, you don't have to be in a big conference room. You're doing the same, utilizing the technology in the same way, but for a different purpose. And I think, and I'm sure Adam will agree, I think this is a future of business, especially when you're specializing in really concentrated areas such as yours and knee therapy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what Pitch is doing and what I'm doing with Synergy is using technology to our advantage. And I think a lot of people worry like we're going to replace ourselves with like robots or with, just click and press and you're going to get answers. And what's really great is there's still a human aspect to what, we're all doing here. We're just using technology to reach a larger group of people, whether it be in a certain states like us that we're licensed or for you guys all over the whole world. Right. And let's use it to our advantage to really make connections and help people and their businesses grow. I do it on a personal, individual level when people become our patient, and you guys are doing it with entrepreneurs and businesses. So it's really very similar.
Absolutely. So let's talk about e-therapy. Generally, let's say, for instance, I'm not going to throw Adam under the bus, but what if I need help? What do I?
I think we all need help.
In some way, I think so. What is the process in terms of saying, Dr. Lisa, what I want to talk to you. I have a lot going on in my life. I practice law every day. It's a high stressful environment. Maybe I don't know how to manage my time as well. Maybe I need to work better in a group. What is the process of coming to the company and getting immersed in your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, really when you think about people who are really suffering from anxiety or maybe social anxiety, or, they've had significant traumas and things are coming up for them, even through work and through your business, if we don't kind of take a look at ourselves personally and things that we've struggled with, it kind of does show up in places we don't expect. And so if somebody is searching, they're usually going to go to their Google, right? And go, find a therapist near me that deals with anxiety or something, right? When somebody comes and searches for therapy, they're not always searching for online therapy or e-therapy. A lot of people don't know that it even exists. Telemental health is certainly getting a lot more traction as telemedicine advances, right? But people who, when they're searching, when they're struggling, my kid is acting out, that's what you search. And so hopefully they find us, if there's a therapist in your state, with Synergy, and they go to the website and look around and kind of see what this is all about. We have several different therapists. We have videos of the therapists, so you can actually see who we are, because we're not going to see you in person. So it's really helpful just to get a video to see who each therapist is. And you find the one that is licensed in your area, and it's super easy. It's all automated on the site. You can actually get a free consultation, fill out a little contact form, and you can schedule it right there, or you can just dive in and schedule your first session. Synergy eTherapy is private pay. We're out of network, so people can use a credit card or an HSA credit card, and they don't have to worry about all the different things that come along with using insurance, like having sessions kind of approved and treatment planning. And we unfortunately keep insurance out. And some people might not have major depression, and you kind of have to have a diagnosis in order to be seen through insurance. So maybe you're just struggling and you don't really have major depression, but you need to kind of get some support. We can offer that because it is private pay. And so that's how it works. It's super easy, kind of like how I'm talking to you now. This is what it would feel like, not on this type of platform, obviously, HIPAA compliance.
He would be on the couch.
We can start talking, yeah. And this is really what it feels like. So you can be in your home, you could be in your car, you could take a break from work and have access to a therapist instead of, driving, an hour in the freeway, and you know how it is in certain, major metropolitan areas. But also, if you're in a rural place, somewhere where your therapist is 250 miles away, then you really don't have a lot of choice as to who you get to see. Right. And so we also kind of expand that. You could see one of us who have decades of experience. We've created programs, we've run programs, we've done research. We have a lot behind us, so you can actually get to see us even if you were 250 miles away. So it is kind of easy.
Oh, it's incredible. And I have to ask, what is one of the strangest places that maybe one of your patients, not by name, of course, had been during a session?
Well, I'm not going to say one of mine because they will be watching this probably at some point. But I know from therapist Facebook pages that I've been on, you do have to set the boundaries. A lot of people are like in their office, in their car, on their bed with the laptop kind of on their lap or on a couch. But there are sometimes somebody took their phone into the bathroom, I heard, and they had to say, you know what, let's call you back. And so you do have to do a little bit of coaching because it is still in your space.
Of course.
There's so many pros and cons to that, though. I mean, going to the bathroom on a clinical call is probably not ideal, but you are in your own home. You're not in like my office, which is my furniture and my pictures, where it's a little bit harder to relax. So we've noticed that people being in their own home or their own environment really does allow them to open up even faster because they're comfortable and they're safe. And there's a little bit of distance. So people, I see some people that have more social anxiety, and we have our sessions by phone call. So, and then we can use the e-therapy platform to say, let's go from a phone call after a little bit to a video call. And we can, in real time, practice reducing your anxiety by using the skills we've learned. And then maybe we can go out and do X, Y, and Z. So it really is a way to use the platform to get the treatment to progress.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know Drew wants to dive into the topic of cyberbullying, because I know he speaks around the country about that, but we certainly want to get your take on that as well.
Yeah.
You know, we certainly live in a digital age where, you know, unfortunately, people are taking on new forms of bullying, of harassment. I know as like a labor and employment attorney, dealing with harassment is like done outside of the workplace a lot of the times now. And one of the challenges that a lot of employers have is, well, you know, how are we going to govern out of office behavior in terms of keeping our employees compliant, you know, outside of the workplace? So
Yeah.
I think we just lost Drew for a second, but if you can, Drew, are you back?
I'm back. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not sure what happened, but I think I really needed to just absorb what Dr. Lisa said. So I apologize. I'm back, ready to go.
Good recovery. I like that.
I'm leading into your questions about cyberbullying. So if you want to, I know this is your specialty, if you want to jump in. Sure.
Well, hopefully that wasn't anybody that just trolled me and booted me. So I apologize. You know what? You know, Dr. Lisa, what you do, it's definitely not easy. And I'm sure you and your team come across such a wide variety of personalities and people from different backgrounds. And, you know, in this digital age where technology is supposed to be used for good, unfortunately, at times we've seen it's not. And a lot of times where we see online trolling, online hatred, you know, how can e-therapy really help somebody, whether they're in high school, college, even in the workplace, who may be victimized or subject to, you know, that kind of behavior? How do people deal with it? How would you suggest people address that, especially within your company?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. And I would say at least 50 to 60% of the younger kids or the teenagers that we see have spoken about some form of bullying. There still is some in-person bullying that does still happen, but there is so much of the, you know, Instagram and Snapchat, and there's direct cyberbullying. And I've seen the texts that kids have gotten of my clients, and it's really horrific because you are a little more anonymous. You put a screen in front of your face and you can start typing anything you want. You don't see the repercussion. You don't see that person's nonverbals. You don't see how you're impacting somebody emotionally. You're kind of impulsive, and, you know, as we know, we got to teach our kids and help them understand empathy and kindness, and it's kind of always something that's there. But when I yet to see somebody that is the bully. It's very interesting. I've always been seeing the ones that are the victims of bullying. And it may just so happen that they are more sensitive, they're more anxious, they're more empathic, they're more calm or shy or reserved. They're not the ones kind of that are extroverted or external with their feelings. They kind of are like, I don't know what to do. And that is that power differential of bullying. There's an amazing person that I follow. His name is Brooks Gibbs, and I show these videos a lot to the kids I work with. He talks about the power differential between the bully and the victim, and what bullying is really about, and trying to help kids create things that they can say or that they can do to kind of stop it where it's at. So instead of kind of coming back and saying, no, I'm not, so are you, or I'm better than you, it's being able to kind of really reframe it and saying, how do we like totally help them to become powerless so they can't really say much back. So if you're saying something to me and I say, you know, that might be true, but I'm feeling pretty good about myself today, you're kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like, I don't know where you're at. Right. How do you respond to that? So there's really, I do a lot of teaching and role playing and practicing with the kids that I see to help them to realize that there are things that they can say or do. And the more we practice, then in real life, when it comes to be a time where they need to do something like that, they can say it. When it comes to the cyberbullying, sometimes it's just removing themselves from the social media. It becomes just too much for them to handle. Any of the kids, really, I think sometimes for them to handle it, because there's such a distance between what you're doing and how that's going to impact somebody else. And we unfortunately see a lot of this in the news and the media, that kids are really, really suffering and struggling to the point where suicide is something that is happening with kids really, really young, and it just shouldn't be. And so, we work with the families, if they have families involved. We work with the kids and the teenagers and even adults too. How do you communicate to other people? What is in your control? What can you do? And if it is a legal issue, do you need to go to the police? Do you need to go to the school resource officer, like the principal? You don't just get to sit there and take it. Like, there are things. And so giving kids and adults the power and the knowledge that this isn't something that they should be doing or experiencing, and they don't have to sit there and just kind of feel really, really bad about it. It's really awful. It's really sad and really hard to deal with. I'm glad you guys are bringing that up.
And I think parents, teachers, just observance of bullying behavior, they need to do more to get, sort of the harassed or the bullied kid in a place of help. Because, there's only so much a person, kid, adult, doesn't matter who it is, can take. And if people aren't doing enough to intervene, I mean, that's when you see tragic stories and, the stuff that we're seeing on the news, and it just gets totally out of hand. So, I mean, how do we convey to the public how important it is to intervene, to do something about it? If you see it, report it, that type of thing.
Yeah. I think just talking about it and being open about that this is something that's happening, and it is leading to kids feeling very depressed, very anxious, avoiding school, having a lot of physical symptoms. Just talking about what is this? A lot of people or parents don't always know what's happening. Kids are a little bit embarrassed or shy to maybe talk about it with a parent. So if you notice these physical symptoms, tummy aches and headaches, if you're feeling them yourself as an adult, I don't want to go to work because there's somebody that constantly is bugging me and harassing me, just being able to know that this is something, this is a thing, and it is manageable if we can get the appropriate supports and resources in, and then just talking to other parents about it, talking about what's happening on social media, talking to your kids really, really young, starting the conversation a lot earlier than teenagerhood, and being able to tell them, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate online. And we see this even with, toddlers. They're watching YouTube Kids, as you guys have seen, and in comes some really scary things. It's right? And so parents are like, what are we supposed to do? And yeah, right? And it's getting the conversation started. I mean, is that a form of cyberbullying? You could argue, who are these people trying to come in and really kind of be mean to kids, innocent kids? So there's so many things with the internet, with social media, that if we can just start talking about it more with our family, with our friends, with our teachers, with our principals, with, people at work in your HR department. Are people bullying one another in person or even on social media? And how's that how's that play into your productivity and your overall wellness in your workplace?
Even for small kids, I know there's a few companies that I've worked with personally that have created social networking for kids. I know Facebook tried or has this messenger for kids, but I mean, there's outlets like Grom Social where you have an entire ecosystem, that is run by trained staff that, not hide, but run these animated characters, so to speak, that befriend the kids. They teach them how to be good. There's others aside from Grom that do this, but at the same time, training people at an early age, especially for kids, how to be good digital citizens, I think is very important. As they get old enough, they get older in age, they make that transition from that platform to the Facebook, to the Instagram, to the YouTube. But at the same time, for at least from a legal perspective, there's more legislation coming out. States are starting to realize, saying, look, it's a problem. And the biggest issue is, what is cyberbullying? Kind of like what you said, of how do you really define it? Where's the line between sensitivity and, crossing that line? And there's people like, Senator Robert Zirkin out of Maryland that's pushed for legislation like Grace's Law. And, you're starting to see it. And I think, as you said, talking about it is doing something. Maybe not as quickly, but it's definitely getting on the map. Yeah.
And I think the same goes for mental health. There's such a stigma that, people aren't going to say, I'm feeling depressed, I'm having a panic attack. You know, especially for men, they're not going to go into a therapist or a psychologist all the time. Then it's hard to get them into the primary care physician, let alone a therapist sometimes. And so really to understand, like, I'm sorry, I totally got messed up with the the pop-up there that came up. What was I saying? No, I'm like totally forgetting.
Mental health.
The mental health. Thank you. The stigma of mental health is really starting. I think we're seeing more movements because more and more celebrities are starting to really talk about it and tweet about it. And they're saying, you know, this is me, this is how I'm handling it. And I think the more we talk about it, that reduces the stigma. The more we talk about, you know, what is cyberbullying? How do we learn to communicate with each other and not forget, like, there is this thing called a face-to-face conversation, right? And so when we get a little more detached, our emotions sometimes go with that. And we can say or do things that maybe we wouldn't say or do in person. And so sometimes people say, well, with Synergy E-Therapy, like, you know, you're kind of like, if you're socially anxious, isn't that just kind of buying into staying socially anxious? And what I say to that is, I would rather you get treatment in your home and you don't leave so that we can get you out of your home to then get, you know, higher levels of care or different types of support. And so for some people, it might be a stepping stone, but it's not really that much different therapy-wise, clinically, with what we offer in most respects than if you're sitting in front of me. It's a slightly different removed feeling in some ways, but once you do it more and more, you really start to kind of feel the connection just as similar as you would. So reducing the stigma for mental health, kind of really engaging people in real conversation and helping people to learn that, you know, there are supports out there. And I'm glad to hear, like, legally too, because that is, you know, a lot of times that's where the backing is, and we need to kind of go that way and get the legislation to back what we see and know through research.
And I think with Synergy Therapy, I mean, it almost becomes like, you know, you don't have an excuse not to get the therapy now. I mean, you have an online platform. You can do it while you're at work. You can do it while you're at home. It's HIPAA compliant. You're talking to a therapist directly like this. So, you know, I guess I kind of want to hear about, you know, transitioning from the cyberbullying into some use cases for busy entrepreneurs on the go. You know, people that are still at their work and they got, you know, that stuff behind them, like me. You know, let's talk about, you know, the busy people that you're working with and just some use cases and why maybe these types of people would be good patients for you. Yeah,
I think that's a great question. You know, for you guys and for myself, you know, being an entrepreneur, you put so much of, like, your heart and soul into this business or into what you're trying to start up. And we forget a lot of the time just by default because it is so, like, all consuming, and it's almost part of your identity. Like, if this doesn't work, then what does that mean? I'm a failure, like, you know, and then we kind of internalize a lot. And I think with busy entrepreneurs or just busy people in general who are working, but entrepreneurs in particular, there's this, like, type A kind of feeling of, like, I got to take care of this, and this, and the sun comes up at 6 and it goes down, but man, am I still up until like 2 in the morning and I'm not getting great sleep and I'm on all the time. I mean, even for myself, I'm like really texting my therapist and texting my clients, and it is kind of a 24/7 thing. You don't really get to shut the door and go home and just turn it off until the next day. And so I think for people to be mindful that you do need that balance. And in order to be a really good entrepreneur, you have to really take care of yourself. You have to have family time, and you have to have downtime, and you have to just go to a movie and not answer the phone. And really, it's a skill to learn that when you are an entrepreneur, because you're just so, like, driven and you want to keep going. So learning, you know, how to cope with whatever you're struggling with. Maybe there is some anxiety, or maybe there's some perfectionism, right? Or maybe your family is like, dude, where are you? You know, like, you know, here I am. And it, you know, it's a work in progress always. And I think being able to just have insight into why you're doing what you're doing, try to slow down and take a break that's just for you, because entrepreneurs are usually doing for everyone else, having to attend to everything or everyone else. And so I think in that regard, it can be really helpful. Almost, we're not health coaches, we're not business coaches, we are therapists, but there is that element of like that cognitive behavioral aspect that we add is like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How is this going into what you're behaving? And are you congruent with your thoughts and feelings with how you're acting? And so I think that's a huge piece, is just really being able to manage like that energy that entrepreneurs have to exude all the time. And then not to forget that we're people first, and we all have histories, and some people have severe trauma histories, and some people have really unresolved family issues, or they have, bullying from the past, or medical issues, or there's things that can really just as a person get in the way. And how do we understand kind of where we came from and learn to gain that insight and say, well, okay, well, I'm not going to sit on the couch forever and just talk about my family, but now what do I do? What do I do with this insight? And then we can help kind of guide the treatment, whatever that looks like, mindfulness activities, or, dialectical behavioral therapy, or ACT, or CBT. There's a lot of really great therapies that can get people's mental health from kind of like a really tough place to like mental wellness. And then what you're doing is you're also teaching your kids, right? You're teaching your nephews and your nieces, or your students if you're a teacher, or whatever you're doing in your day, whoever your family or people you love, you're saying, I need to learn how to balance this.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that energy that goes into therapy. I could keep going for about 5 hours.
No, this is great. I mean, this is a therapy session for both Adam and I. My old boss, the previous law firm I was at before I hung my shingle out, he's a wonderful mentor. He's a good friend, and he had always emphasized to me, starting out, knowing and understanding when to work on the business, working in the business, and then stepping out of the business. And there's different tasks associated with your administrative is really working on the business. That's making sure the external infrastructure is running smoothly. But then it's a whole nother world when you step into the business, whether you're carrying 3 phones, whether you're talking with clients, but then understanding that you do need that personal time, that you do need to spend time with your family, or, go out with friends, or, attend to whatever it is you want to do. And
right. Read a book that isn't about what you're doing, right?
Read something that isn't a case law book, or, a practice guide, whatever it may be. And that has resonated so well with me. And, I'm guilty of it. I'm still learning it myself.
So am I, 100%.
It's tough.
I think we all are. It's about trying to find a balance, and it's like a never-ending battle. Am I going to ever find the balance? Because you got so many things going on, and saying yes to something always equates to saying no to something else. Right. So, like, I always look at it like, okay, if you want to work out, if you want to see your family, if you want to do things for yourself, you should build that into your schedule. Literally put it on your calendar as if you would put it for an appointment.
Yeah, and that's great. I that is one thing that we often encourage people to do, is to make your self-care time an actual priority in an appointment. Otherwise, it gets down further and further on the list, because you got your have tos, and then people look at mental health and self-care as a want to, and it's really not, because we can't do this well if we're not doing this well. Yeah. I'm still a work in progress. You can ask my husband. I think I literally just said, what? I just looked at my calendar until the end of May and how many things I've booked. And I'm like, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And I say it out loud, and he's just like, okay. I say it out loud because it's more for me to go, I need to say no, because we have this big charity event for suicide prevention and awareness. I'm like, I need to just kind of shift the focus. And it's all like great things, and it's such good energy, but it is consuming, and it is really hard for entrepreneurs to slow down and to compartmentalize. It's really hard to turn off your brain. And then a lot of people have trouble sleeping, which of course goes into mental health and wellness too. So there's so many facets to physical, mental, emotional health. And we just like to help people really understand that holistic aspect. We're not simple creatures. We're kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Now, stepping outside the business, but still kind of staying within the realm, in your pastime, do you have any favorite books or, maybe some podcasts that you like that maybe aren't really forcing you to, stay in the business, but you're, some sort of entertaining reading, light reading, but you're still kind of educating yourself a little bit. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I do. I have my phone here, so if I'm looking down, that's why, because I have my list of handy dandy things. One thing that you, as entrepreneurs, I really highly stress, or really just anybody, if you haven't heard of her, you probably will soon. Brene Brown, she is kind of the guru out there on like shame and talks a lot about like self-care and self-love. She has a new book out called Dare to Lead. And you can go to her website, brenebrown.com. She's an author, she's a researcher, she has blogs and podcasts. She's pretty famous, I would say, just with anybody. But I think if you're looking for something that's really kind of like, it's still psychology based, but it's very much about like, how do you communicate and, how do you feel about yourself and how is that shown to the world and to other people and how do you work with those negative thoughts? So that's good. I will admit that I will put in a podcast at like 11 at night when I'm cleaning the kitchen sometimes because it just helps me to keep going. And there's one called Boss Mom. So for the women or the moms out there, that's a podcast that's really fun to listen to, Boss Mom. It's like you're an entrepreneur, you're also a mom. You're your own boss. Maybe you're, doing whatever it is you're doing, just the boss of the house, which is a hard job. So, there's that. There is a book called Profit First. I know a lot of us psychologists and therapists have learned about that. Have you guys heard of that one, Profit First? And it's more like financial. How do you kind of separate into different categories your money, and it's really interesting, and not to have too much debt and things like that.
We'll have to look into that one. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm getting anxiety already.
Yeah. Oh, so anxiety. I know there was a question I saw pop up about, I don't know what it was about. It was a question maybe about a resource for
we're
maybe going.
Do some Q&A at the end, and
perfect.
We'll dive into all the questions and. The
but
live audience, if you guys have questions, type them in. We'll get to them all at the end. We just have like one or two more topics, and then we'll get to the questions. And we really appreciate Dr. Lisa's time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. I know there was one more I want to say that's super really. It's super really. It's really good to read, even if you're not raising a child. This and I have it here because I love it. It's Daniel Siegel. And it's The Whole Brain Child. He has a lot of really great books. Daniel Siegel, you can Google him as well. And it explains anxiety and stress in a way that you would want to understand it from a child's perspective. And given the fact that we've all been children before, we can maybe resonate and then understand it in simpler terms of what's happening in the brain when you are anxious or stressed or have anxiety disorders, what's going on, and how to really focus on it and work with it, whether you have children or not. I love Daniel Siegel's books are really good too.
Very cool. Well, that's
thank you so much. Those are great recommendations.
You're welcome. I've got more if anyone wants to reach out. Feel free.
Absolutely. Well, I know I will be looking into this more and probably seeing a little bit more of you on a private level outside the podcast. So this is good. And, this is the greatest kind of value people can get for everyone watching. I mean, this isn't something you can get from a book. And I think you're humanizing it. And I think that's what's most important here.
Yeah, there is something said in the psychology world that 80% of people getting better is about the connection that you have with your therapist and the trust that you can build, and learning and feeling vulnerable about, things that you've experienced or gone through, and sitting with somebody else in peace and in silence and in pain, and it is very powerful. So there's lots of great therapeutic techniques out there, and some for certain things versus others, but really finding a good therapist, and you can shop around and ask for a free consult and try to understand if this person is going to be good personally for you. Are they going to have just kind of how they are? Does it feel like a good fit? And, I encourage people to do that and to take the time and really invest in finding somebody that you think will be a good fit so you can get comfortable and open up.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, Adam, do you want to turn it over to see what questions we have for Dr. Lee?
Let's run through some of these questions. So one of the questions comes in from Diani, Maine. It says, Dr. Lisa Herman, do you recommend any books for parents with younger children to learn how to have effective conversations about bullying and cyberbullying?
Well, I don't have a book specifically, but I do have the website brooksgibbs.com, Gibbs, Brooks Gibbs. I would watch that with your children. They are appropriate to watch. Some are more teenage based, and but he explains what bullying is. He actually has like auditoriums in like a high school, and he brings kids on stage and he'll run through it and have actual things that you can meet with. So that is where I would start. And you can see it, you can engage with it, you can talk with your kids about, has it ever happened to them? Have they ever been a bully? At some point, you got to think most of us have said or done something that was kind of bullyish, even though we wouldn't consider ourselves to be a bully when you're younger. You're learning the social rules and the social norms, and you're wanting to figure out who you are and how you fit in. So I think like focusing on kind of that self-esteem, or, really trying to help kids to understand and be self-aware of how what they do impacts others and how they feel when others impact them, and just really focusing on emotions. But I would start with Brooks Gibbs and go from there. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, so question is, where can people follow you, Dr. Lisa? Are you heavy on social media? Should they go to your website, your LinkedIn page? What do you recommend for people to follow you?
Yes, and yes, they can do that. So I am on LinkedIn. It's just under my name, and it just professionally to just kind of connect there. I am on Facebook, our @ and then Synergy eTherapy, and you can see everything that we're doing. I also co-founded a charity event for suicide prevention and awareness.
I wanted you to dive into that as well, to just share with the community a little bit about this event, because I think it's a very important event that you've hosted. I think your second year hosting it. Yep,
we're going into our second year. It's called Shout Out Loud MN, as in Minnesota. So you can follow us there too, and just the @ and we're on Instagram and Facebook for both Synergy and Shout Out Loud. And that really was born out of a really kind of random meeting where I needed headshots for my website, and the person taking them lost her brother 4 years prior to suicide. And we just started talking, and we really connected, and we just organically created this grassroots movement. Shout Out Loud Minnesotans, I love it. Yeah. And, we get together and we raise money for other nonprofits, and we have local bands, we have food trucks. This year we're having like a carnival wellness activities that our sponsors are going to be providing, like really fun games, but kids are going to take away an actual skill or something that is very much focused on mental wellness. And we have like a huge art thing, and we're gonna have videos, and it's just really, really a fun time. And we want kids and families to start, like what I said, like, how do we deal with this, reduce the stigma? We just got to start talking about it. You go to a 5K for diabetes, let's go to a wellness carnival for suicide and mental health, and just making it part of what they do every year, so it doesn't become so taboo. So yes, you can follow me in all of those avenues, and certainly feel free to reach out on the website. There's a contact form. You can email or call me directly to those numbers, and emails go right to me, the main ones on the website.
Absolutely. And I actually have one last question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
For entrepreneurs generally, going back to social media, how do you market yourself, your brand? Do you prefer LinkedIn? Do you like Facebook? What is to you? What works for you in terms of getting the most visibility for what you do, especially with the organizations you're a part of and the good work you do? What would you recommend, or what's your advice to younger entrepreneurs that are coming out there?
Yeah, I think it's a learning process, because I'm not like an SEO marketing expert. And so I rely a lot on getting support from other people who are. I don't pretend to know a lot about this area of marketing or website development and what to post and how to post. To be honest, sometimes it's just like I create something that I think people would want to know. And I just put it out there, and we see kind of what resonates, what gets likes, what gets shares, where people are really emotionally kind of connecting. LinkedIn is awesome for really like, professionally development with other professionals in different fields. And that I really like for professional development. And from that come things that in the end, it will have clients, right? That's kind of like that B2B marketing, as my husband would say, I think, right? Not B2C. See, I'm learning as we go.
There you go. There you go.
And so I think directly what we're trying to do is do more things like this, like get videos out there. I want people to hear me. I want people to see my therapist. I want them to understand like what they can bring to the table and how they can add value to their life and their family's life or their loved ones. So it is a lot of trial and error. And I think, you can't go wrong, right? You just kind of start and you learn along the way, and people help. And as you grow and evolve, you can change and understand your process a little more. But I think sometimes, especially for like entrepreneurs, we dive in either too impulsively sometimes and just see what happens, or we get really stuck with that like paralysis by analysis, and we're like, I don't even know what to do where, so I'm just going to think about this for about a year, 3, 4. And there's this middle ground that has to happen. You have to have like trust in yourself that no matter what, as long as you're not breaking any laws or really hurting people, that you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to kind of trial and error, and you're going to kind of learn from experience. I do not like the word fail. I think it's bogus. I think you always learn from things, as long as you don't make really horrible choices that lead to, whatever, harm, right? As much as you can. But I think that it's a learning process, and just to kind of start and figure it out along the way.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, do we have any other questions from the audience? If we do not, I encourage each of you to reach out to Dr. Lisa, reach out to us, let us put you in contact with her. An incredible resource. You are amazing. We actually do have one question. Do you have a therapist serving the Florida area? Because I know we have a lot of our guests from Florida. So.
Yeah. Right now we do. We have therapists in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, New York, South Carolina, Alabama, and Florida licensed right now. It always is changing and evolving as people's lives change and evolve. So I don't want to say that's always going to be the case, or those are the only states. We always have people applying as therapists, and we always have therapists that life changes and certain things happen where they're not going to be with us, or maybe that state won't be offered at some point. But at the moment, those are the states that we have. So
no love for Ohio, huh?
No, but if you have any ideas on therapists who might want to join a group practice, it is their own practice, it is. And I kind of coach them and bring them on board and like hand them a good legal, ethical practice and help them along the way. So it's fun. It's a little hybrid, where you're getting that group feel and that coach, but it's also really your practice. You got to learn the market, and you got to get out there and make it what you want. So
awesome. Well, thank
you so much. Practice makes progress. That's right.
There you go.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. We could keep talking, I feel like, forever, but nobody would eat dinner.
Yeah,
self-care, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time. Audience members, we encourage you guys to rewatch this video if you didn't watch the whole thing. If you're seeing this for the first time, feel free to continue to type in your questions, even if it's not live. Really look forward to seeing everybody for the next episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa. Thank you, Andrew. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you guys so much.